Hello and welcome to another RT2629 restoration video. In this episode we're going to be rebuilding the last of the parts that we removed from the chassis, ready for the engine to go back in and the chassis and the running workings of the bus all to be complete. So you'll see shortly that we've done the engine bay, that's all finished, and the last remaining job to do is finish the air system, which is rebuilding the composite valve which swaps between different parts of the braking system and the gearbox, and the non-return valve on the other end of the air tank. This is the non-return valve on the end of the air tank, and this is the first one we're going to take apart, strip it down and clean it up and put it back together. If it can come under... oh, that one's loose. That one's not. Thank you to everyone who sent us Whitworth spanners and sockets. We've now got more than a Whitworth spanner and socket factory, I think, but we're very grateful, and they'll come in great use on the RT and going forwards with the restoration. So thank you to everyone that sent bits and pieces in for us to use. And there we go, one valve that hasn't been off probably since the tank was put together. Now we can clean that up, make new gaskets and put it all back on. There we go, one cleaned up outside of the valve. Now see all the gunge inside these? That's why the air system ends up being slow.
That's not seen the light of day for many a year.
No, and it's full of grease and gunge. There we go, so there's nothing left in there at all. That's all empty now. So I'll use a drill bit, and not that big. Clean all the gunge out of these. See it all coming out there. Same in that one. You can see it on the cloth there.
Okay, now Tim has cleaned up the non-return valve. It's my job to make a couple of gaskets before we put it back on the tank. And for that, we have to make our own using gasket paper, which is 0.25mm thick. Okay, so that's the outline done. Now I've just got to do the holes. There we go. One finished little gasket.
Now that Dave's made the gaskets, we can reassemble this valve, ready to go back on the tank. So we're going to put the little plug back in the end first. We just put a tiny little drop of thread sealant on each one. Because I don't like air leaks, so the less air leaks we've got, we shouldn't have any anyway, the better. We put a little bit of oil on all these bits. So that the seals aren't dry when it all starts working again, until the auto lube gets oil back around the system to all the moving bits. So that goes in the bottom of there. And if I can find where the pliers went. I'll just make sure that's all now moving nicely and it's not stuck. Better. Yeah, so the valve moves round and round in the bottom and up and down nicely, so it's not going to stick when it starts operating again. Then the spring goes back in, that pushes onto that, and then same again, little bit of sealant, that goes down the middle of the spring and screws back in. And there we go. One rebuilt non-return valve. Now we're just taking the composite valve off.
We'll try in. Fucking hell. Excuse me.
Which is what controls the air between the brake tank, the gearbox tank and the main reservoir, which are all part of this tank, all in one.
You ready? You got it?
Yeah. Right, that's the worst cleaned off the outside of the composite valve. Now we can strip it down, check all the inside bits, oil everything up and put it back together. The last time this was apart, somebody has filled it full of grease, which has almost stopped the air getting through, because you can see where it's all been bubbling in the bottom. But at least it's protected all the bits of the valve. So we can clean all the gungy grease out that's all full of rust and water that's all been trapped in it, and then put it all back together again. See the way all the holes and everything have all been blocked up by the grease. It's amazing any of the air system worked at all. Now that everything's all cleaned up and we've got rid of all that grease and gunge and old rusty water that was inside, we can start putting it all back together. And as you can see down here, there's a lot of bits to go back together. You won't believe there were so many parts inside there. That's if we can remember how it goes back together.
We have a little bit of confusion. We've got 3 holes the same size, and we can't remember what came out of what hole. But Tim thinks he's got it sorted.
Oh, I've got it sorted.
Have you?
Yes, definitely.
Are you sure?
Yes. 100% certain. That goes.
So you want the double
I'll
one?
forget that for now.
The
Let me look at the other one.
The double one?
Yeah.
That was one piece. That must be for the other side.
This was definitely together, wasn't it?
Yeah, all that bit. Yeah, that was all together.
That stayed together.
Yeah. If you want to be sure, we can take the footage off the camera, put it on the computer, go and look at it for when we dismantled it. Yeah,
that sits in there.
That's it. Yeah, that's how it was.
And that goes in there. Nope. Because there's a spring sticking up there, isn't there?
Well, there will be as well if you took that off. Because that sits in this, doesn't it? So we just look back at the camera footage that you've probably just watched, and now he thinks he's got it right. Yeah?
Yeah.
Was we right the first time, or was we wrong?
No, we were wrong the first time. It's because that clip's on there.
We had that upside down, did we?
Yeah.
Right. You see, when you're doing stuff like this, always take photos or video.
Which I did the first time I did it.
But now he can't find the photos on his phone. So that's just about it. The job is done. Just got to make a gasket for this area here now before it goes back on the tank. But I think before we'll do that, we're going to have a nice cup of tea. We're going to have a cup of tea in our teapot that's not a teapot. It's not even a British Rail teapot. Apparently, it's a coffee pot, according to the comments that you made on the RT video that we published a couple of months ago when we introduced you to that brand new teapot that I thought was from BR. I bought it on eBay. The seller told me on the description, a former British Rail teapot. But according to your descriptions on the video, it's a coffee pot and it's not from BR because there's no BR logo on it. I think I was scammed.
I thought that was on the bottom.
Yeah, there is a BR. There's like a hallmark on the bottom that says BR, but there's no BR logo. So does that BR stand for British Rail or does that stand for something else?
No, it's definitely BR. Because it says BRM in brackets, which is Midland.
Oh, okay. Maybe I wasn't scammed. Did you read the comments on that video?
Yeah, I did read it.
But it could be a coffee pot. Certainly
Well,
not
it could
a
be a
teapot.
coffee pot, but it's definitely from the railway.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so now the composite valve is all back together and all in the right place, we hope. It's time to make the gasket. This is going to sit between the valve and the tank. While I'm doing the gasket, Tim is tidying up the tank, ready for painting. Right, that's all the gasket's done. Okay, so the air tank is now back fully assembled again and it's been cleaned up and is ready for paint, along with some other bits as well. Now, I'm not going to do much videoing of the painting process, and that's because last time I videoed Tim and his spray gun, I got a load of overspray all over the camera and on the lens, and it took me hours to clean it. So here is a before, and get ready for the after in just a moment from now. The anti-corrosive primer is done. And that's the top coat done. All we've got to do now is wait for this little lot to dry and then they can go back on the bus. And then we will be ready to start rebuilding that engine.
This end is the non-return valve between the... I'll have to look in the book.
There's another. Oh.
could have said that before, couldn't he?
I could see that and I was behind the camera.
We just put all these seals back together with a little bit of oil on, so that it's not, so that you drop it on the floor.
Just drop it on the floor, covered in shit.
Covered in grass and everything else.
Should we start that again?
So then you clean it off again.
Let's start all over again.
And start over again.
Right, come on, get out of my way. Let me make the gasket.
Just for that.
We're videoing it.
Are you? Oh, are you? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Sorry, YouTube.